Welcome to this episode of Your Wellness MD podcast. Family physician and wellness expert, Dr. Daniela Stein, has meaningful conversations that will take your health to the next level. She explores the connection between a healthy body, mind, and soul, and shares tips that will enable you to thrive. Dr. Stein has helped thousands of people have a better quality of life by improving their health with science-based knowledge, education, better nutrition, mindfulness, and lifestyle choices. Join us today, empowering you to live your best life with optimal health.
Hi, I'm Dr. Daniela Stein, and I'm so excited to have Amy with me today. Hi, Amy, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Amy is a very, very well-known. She's called the aromatic gardener, and she's an absolute expert in her field. And I would like Amy to introduce yourself. Tell our audience, what do you do and what are you passionate about?
This is fun. Thanks for asking, because I am an aromatherapist professionally. To clarify this, we are certified. We're not licensed. We obtain certifications here. And I'm aligned with the Alliance of International Aromatherapists and the National Association for Holistic Aromatherapy. But I am an aromatherapist, and that means I work with essential oils. And I'm an educator. First and foremost, I find it's my passion to share with people what an essential oil really is. We see these little bottles, a lot of us in the last, especially 20 years. You can go to a drugstore now and get a bottle of oregano, for goodness sakes. So what is that, and how can we integrate them into our lives to help us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually?
Yes, that's a big deal. And that's why I'm so excited to have you, because you're really a specialist in the field. So you're in the US, but our podcast listeners are really listening from all over. We have podcast listeners in Europe, in Asia. And then, so when you say that you with a national body, that would be the US national body, but then you're also licensed or certified internationally, which is amazing. So I grew up in South Africa, and my first introduction to essential oils were eucalyptus. So eucalyptus comes from a tree in South Africa. And for us, that is our first line of defense. If you have a cold or a stuffed nose, the first thing you'll get is some eucalyptus on your chest or some eucalyptus on a tissue next to your pillow when you sleep at night. And I still make sure that when I buy eucalyptus now, that it really comes from South Africa.
I love that.
And then, but tell me a bit about your passion and your love with essential oils. Where does that come from?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I fell into this blindly. I have always loved plants. I grew up gardening. I grew up weeding. Like, I would be outside weeding with my mother and loved it. And I moved to New York City in the year of 1999, and I knew I felt ungrounded, but I needed to, finish my degree, and I got the job, and I, started to make a good salary, and I loved it, but I was empty, and I always found a way to connect with nature. And I love being in New York City. I love the culture. I love the opportunities and everything, but it still lacks so much. And the essential oils found me. I bumped into them. I think my first oil was eucalyptus, and I put it in my humidifier. And we have a loft apartment, so it's like, interesting. What is this? And I'd like to think I'm a right brain person too, but I'm pretty analytical. I was like, what are these? Who are they? How are they obtained? What are these essential oils? I must understand them. And at the time, I didn't know how I needed to be around nature. And I was obsessed. I read books. I needed to become certified. And then I had the opportunity to do so. That whole time, I was trying to figure out scientifically, what are these things? Let me understand them. And there was this whole time, this like emotional connection I was getting to be around plants with the oils when I couldn't be. And that really honestly didn't strike me until around the year 2020, I think. And I've been with the oil since 2012. Like, it took me a long time to articulate this.
To put the dots together.
Yeah. And I always talked about mind, body, spirit, but these oils really help us connect with ourselves, with nature, with something larger than us. So It's embarrassing to admit it, but I like to share with people. It took me a while to be like, there is a call, and I kept following the call, but I didn't understand it fully until a few years ago.
But that's wonderful. That's part of the journey, right? How you grow and how you sometimes allow your body to grow more. And then you're more than just essential oils. You're not just buying the essential oils like me. You're also a gardener. You have that passion for the actual plants, for the actual herbs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so multifaceted that as a gardener, I just have to be around the plants. I'd rather be around them most of the time than with other humans. And I find that, it's interesting. So I'm a pretty introverted person, and I love to help people, but I need my alone time. And I realized as I became a teacher of aromatherapy certification and educating others, the plants are the conduit for me to communicate with other people.
Yes.
And it's me conveying the messages and the wisdom I've learned from the plants, from my teachers, to help. So as a gardener, I think it's super important to understand these beings and who are they? Where do they like to grow? Like you with eucalyptus, I have a tiny plant here. It will grow for the year and it will have to die. It doesn't belong here in New York. It just won't survive. So understanding the plant's needs, and I, as a teacher, I need to understand who the plant is. I need to share with people, what's a picture of the plant? Can we get a sample of it and make a tea to drink it? And could we really just, it's a journey to understand the plant. And I have to give kudos to a woman I really love as a teacher. Her name's Kathy Skipper. And I remember her saying, what's it really take to know a plant? It takes years, multiple encounters with it. So you can read a lot about eucalyptus in a book, but if you don't experience it, right, you don't
Touch it,
fully
to
get to
smell it.
understand its magic. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So you have a wealth of knowledge, and for me to really pinpoint what we're going to talk about in one podcast so that we don't talk for 10 hours, but pick something. I wanted to talk more about menopause because since my book, Thrive Through Menopause, came out, it became an international bestseller right away. And the feedback that I get from people is really because of all the essential oils and the herbs that I mention in there and how they've started drinking those teas, using those essential oils, and how it really improved their quality of life, their sleep, their libido. It's fascinating. It opened a whole new world to people. And looking at the amount of messages that I get on Instagram and on Twitter and on emails that we get, I can see what a big impact it makes in the life of people. And that's why I specifically wanted to talk to you, because you're the expert of the expert, so that everyone who's interested can listen to it. So can you maybe start off by telling us, which herbs do you suggest to your audience really to manage hot flushes? Because hot flushes and the night sweats, are one of the most annoying things I can say during menopause. Menopause is much more than hot flushes and night sweats, but that's quite often something that prompts women to come to us. So which herbs or which oils do you recommend?
I love this because I do have direct experience with this. I've had many people have a lot of help with hydrosols. So I don't know if folks are familiar with hydrosols. When we distill a plant for its essential oil, an aromatic plant for its oil, we get the essential oil that generally floats on top in the forever changed water. So many people know rose water, which could be really nice as a cooling toner, by the way, for health, for skincare, and just making yourself feel absolutely gorgeous.
But you'll have to be more specific to our listeners who haven't. So with cooling toner, you mean that afterwards you take that water and you put it in a bottle and you mist it on your face?
Correct. Thank you for helping me clarify.
Yes,
Yeah. So after washing your face.
Yes, and then especially when you are having hot flushes, when you've had that sweat, if you can spritz and sit in front of a fan, you'll feel $1 million better than if you did not do that. So that's what rose water is great for.
Yes, and even if you feel the hot flush coming on. So I'm a fan of those hydrosols, the aqueous product of the distillation process of aromatic plants. I've had a lot of people be really happy with my friend and I. We called it Lilith, after the biblical Lilith, the empowering woman. Clary sage, and Vitex berry hydrosols
Yes.
to help with hot flushes. And Vitex is, I have to watch my language, right? But Vitex is thought to help progesterone, and clary sage is thought to befriend estrogen. I'll just use those words very loosely.
And how do you take that in?
Oh, spray. Honestly,
So,
with spraying as that mist. Yep.
And for people like us who don't have access to the herbs itself, what do we do? Do we use essential oils?
Yeah. So what I was just describing, I've made and we sold them in my friend's shop. I was referring to the hydrosols, but if you'd like, properly diluted, you could put some Vitex essential oil and some clary sage essential oil. Let's say I'm just making a spritzer for a friend. Just today, I'm going to give it to her.
Oh, that's a beautiful example. Nice.
Thank you. I will be putting some rose water in this as well. But excuse me, this is a 2 ounce or 60 milliliters, right? You would put, there are 30 drops total of essential oil in this. Maybe it'd be 25. Clary sage Vitex, you put distilled water in it. You could put your essential oils in. And as you feel a hot flush coming, you could spray yourself. I'm a fan, spray your hair, because it's about the aromatic molecule. Spray the back of your neck.
Yes, that's a big one.
Where
your temperature sensor is for hot flushes. Yes, definitely.
Yes. Yeah, but honestly, clary sage and Vitex I found are go-to friends. Other aromatherapists might turn to peppermint because peppermint works with our receptors to be cooling in the skin. So you could have that nice cooling, tingling effect. But
that's a big one because usually with a hot flush, we get this by vasodilatation where all your blood vessels dilate. Yes, and then the peppermint helps them to constrict again.
Yes. So a lot of people work with that. But funny enough, I don't work with peppermint. I find my first call to action is clary sage and Vitex.
Okay.
Each practitioner is different. And this is the one thing to your lovely listeners. Everyone's different. So if you read in something that something works for somebody, you might be different. Your genes might be from another part of the world, right? So try other things that work, and that's one thing I love in my training is it's to quote the mother of modern aromatherapy, Marguerite Moret, it's the individual, to use a doctor term, prescription. Each person's different.
Oh, for sure.
And with aromatherapy, if someone doesn't like the smell of clary sage and Vitex or peppermint, you might just say, hey, guess what? We might put a drop of something in there that you love that changes your blend. So that's something that us aromatherapists will do to really help the person want to use their individual product, as I'm holding up this spritzer.
Yes. So that's a big one. And then is there anything else you advise for hot flushes?
I'm thinking of the balancing and cooling herbs.
Yes.
Again, using those words loosely. We already have talked about rose. One I'm a huge fan of, and this happens when I'm teaching and in front of 30 people, when I pull out a bottle of vetiver essential oil. This is a grass, but the roots are very aromatic. The plant is from Haiti, Indonesia. It is shown and worked with in India to be incredibly cooling. So when I smell it, it's working with it's generally on the hypothalamic level, I believe. My body, after smelling for a few seconds, just calms and cools down. And it's magical. And I remember I was teaching a workshop at Memorial Sloan Kettering last year in New York, and I was hot. And I was there and I was like, oh, everybody, I just had the vetiver and it cooled me down. And this is something I want to share with people. Please be very aware that essential oils, by smelling them only, can help you have these experiences. And I'm not saying this, I don't sell product. I'm not here to push product. By smelling for 30 seconds a minute, something will generally shift.
And can just help
really
you to center, especially. So we're talking about hot flushes, but people experience it also with other things when they get that panic attack or that anxiety attack or that severe irritability that just came out of nowhere. If you kind of recognize that irritability and you just smell, it can really help you to center again.
Yes, thanks for saying that, because also that's if you feel it coming on and you feel the agitation, you feel that, oh no, get out that bottle of oil or your special blend that's you carry in your handbag or your bag, get it out and smell it to hopefully mitigate the process. And something I like to share that I've again learned from my teachers too, essential oils support transitions. So if you find you're transitioning into a hot flash, you can mitigate that. You could change your perspective. You can pause. You'll breathe, right? Any little bit
Yes.
counts.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
uh,
Yes. That's a big thing. And then so let's go then how herbs can help you to balance your hormones. So that's a big thing. That's what I talk about in menopause, but it's not only in menopause. It's when we go through, as women, we have much more significant hormonal fluctuations than men do with our menstrual cycle. But then we're exposed to so many of these xenoestrogens, toxins in our environment, which cause our hormones to be in flux even more, and that's so disruptive to us.
yeah.
So how can herbs help us to balance our hormones?
That's because I'm not a medical doctor. I don't have a formal herbalist training, but I do know that even not talking aromatherapy, that our liver is super important. So the more we
Yes.
support our liver, but I won't even get into those herbs, but dandelion root, milk thistle, some of the greatest
Yes.
hits for helping the liver to process estrogen and other hormones. But I'm just, because there's so much to share here, because balancing hormones, a lot of the greatest hits I mentioned already, clary sage and vitex, and we believe those work on that limbic hypothalamic level, even through olfaction. But if I'm thinking about hormones, I'm also thinking about supporting digestion,
Yes,
right?
that's a
I'm
big
also thinking
one.
about, right? So some things I want to share personal experiences. Ginger essential oil can be your best friend. If you find you have cramping, gas, and bloating after eating, sometimes if I eat a really lovely vegetarian meal that I'm so bloated, I feel so disgusting, I will come home and sit with my bottle of ginger, smell it for 5 minutes, and it goes away. And another thing too, that's by olfaction. This is the key too. You might chew ginger, like a piece of ginger, make a ginger tea, but the smelling, because a lot of essential oils are antispasmodic. And I want to bring up one that's interesting that's in my friend's blend. Tarragon is known to be work intimately with estrogen. I'm going to say this. This is one case, right? My friend, hasn't had her period for 7 years. She's been pregnant 4 times and breastfeeding. I had tarragon with me last week at her. She's owns a gardening shop here. I gave her the tarragon to smell in a tissue all day. She wrote to me the next day. She's like, Amy, I got my period.
Oh, wow.
Gonna,
Oh, that's fascinating.
crazy, right? Again, it's one case. I'm not making a medical claim, but it's just like tarragon. It's antispasmodic. It's known to work really well with receptors. And I often think of the uterus as having lots of receptors, but that's the
Yes,
power
it
of
does.
olfaction. And
Okay, but
when
when you
you
say
get to,
olfaction, so for our listeners, what you mean with
yes,
olfaction is so that your nerve that goes from your nose to your brain is called the olfactory nerve.
yeah,
So that's your smelling. So that's a fancy word, olfaction, for smelling. So,
yes,
so what you're saying is that you get that it's so powerful by just smelling it. So even if you can't eat it, even if you because that's herbs is very powerful when we take supplements, it's very powerful when
yeah,
we eat drink it in tea. But then even when you just smell it, you can have this whole transformative experience by just smelling it. And we know
yes.
that, right? Even for us who are not as familiar with aromatherapy, we know when you smell a certain food, you become hungry. When you walk
Yes.
past a bakery and you smell something, it reminds you of a childhood memory. Our, our,
Mm-hmm.
our mood and our psyche is so strongly connected to our smell. We know that. What are you smelling now?
Yeah, when I wanted to share about gastric juices and getting them going through olfaction, I'm smelling lime. If you smell
Ah,
like mandarin or grapefruit, you'll often start to get the salivary glands going, to really stimulate the digestive process. So looping this back to women's health, like if we want to stimulate digestion and we can work with the food, smelling the oil, working with the oils, diluted if they're topical, put, as a spritzer or a cream, we could really help ourselves stimulate bodily processes. I'll use that phrase to
Yes.
get things moving.
Yes, and that is quite important, right? Because we want to make sure our metabolism stays fast. We want to make sure our digestion is good. We want to make sure everything with our digestion should be smooth. It's, just a risk factor for colon cancer if you don't have a bowel movement every day. So it's quite important for everything to keep going. And yeah, so if you can find things like that to stimulate, and that makes everything more appealing. I have a very good friend who's a aromatherapist, and I just love going into her house, and I associate certain of my oils with her house. I know her kitchen smells like this. I know her entrance smells like that.
Uh, I love how you're touching on, because this is the fun thing about aromatherapy is, as you talked about already, we have the memory association.
Yes.
And we know that essential oils worked with topically can be very, very powerful with skin care. You mentioned eucalyptus for preventative medicine. If you feel you're getting a cold, they could be very physical, they're memory related. We could form new memories with them. And we have liking and disliking scents and odors, which is very powerful. And then
Yes.
we have this deep level of like scent is knowing something deeply. It's a chemical sense, right? It works with our chemistry, which is mind blowing. And something I always try to think about and get my head wrapped around is we have the olfaction, we're smelling, there's nerve impulses happening, but we also have these molecules that we go into this highly innervated and vascularized place in our nose, right? Lots of circulation, lots of blood. In essential oils, they can get into our bloodstream and do magical things that way, even by
Yes.
smelling.
Yes.
So I'm saying this because even you touched on the please correct me, xenoestrogen.
Yes.
Am I saying that right?
Yes. It is
Uh,
just artificial estrogens that's maybe from
yeah,
plastic or from
yeah.
pesticides.
Yeah. So on that bridge, when we work with aromatherapy, we're working with genuine, authentic essential oils obtained from pure one single botanical source. So if I say lavender, it's from the lavender plant. No synthetics are used. Like synthetic candles, synthetics in perfumes, these are not healthy for us. So
Yes,
if you're
yes. So it's
working with,
important to mention that, right? So that counts under toxins. So if we just buy essential oils of Amazon or a candle that smells very good, we might be increasing the toxins in our house, which can be more detrimental for our health. So we think we make our house smell good, but it's
yeah,
actually very detrimental to our health. Yes, that's important to mention.
yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Amazon, Etsy. Essential oils shouldn't be overly expensive, but they should be a fair price. Rose oil should be expensive because it's very hard to obtain. It likes to go into and become the rose water. So look for reputable companies. Go to places like in Canada, the CFA, the Canadian Federation of Aromatherapists. You'll find places to recommend aromatherapists, guidelines on finding an essential oil, because so much out there is adulterated. Like people smell real lavender. They think they hate lavender, but many people haven't smelled real lavender.
Yes, yes,
So that's important.
yes. And that's the problem that I personally have with cinnamon. When it's around Thanksgiving and I walk into a store and it smells so cinnamon, I feel that I'm allergic to that smell. I can't handle it. But if it's like the real thing, it doesn't bug me. It's just that artificial smell that they have in stores around Thanksgiving that,
I
oh
know,
my
I'm like,
goodness, gives me
I'm
allergies.
seeing that because I'm the same as you. I just see those brooms that have that fake cinnamon and it just permeates the space. And that's a sign of quality of a real essential oil. If folks are looking to buy these oils, they should smell like a poem. They should come at you, then change, because they're essential oils. Each one is made of different chemistry. You could have 0.01% of a chemical, a natural chemical from the plant in that. That matters, right? It's in there. It's complex. When you're smelling that fake cinnamon stuff, you're probably smelling like one chemical that was made in a lab, or like 5
Yes,
chemicals.
yes,
So that's important from a quality perspective if you're looking to work with these. You take an oil, you put it on a cotton pad and smell it, and it should change and go away because they're volatile. They go away, they evaporate. So that's a quality thing to help people.
Yes. Do you put these essential oils on cotton balls in your laundry dryer?
Uh, I thank you for asking me that because I used to. And then I realized that the scent goes away. So I might make a nice experience in my laundry room, but the oils evaporate. They go away
That's what
into
I'm asking.
the
Yeah. Or your
air, into
vent
the air
system.
duct.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I used to put them on the cotton balls. One thing I do is essential oils expire. Like lemon, if you open it a lot, has a year of like 1 year. They oxidize. You could then clean with that if it's appropriate for your surfaces, or you could put
Interesting.
them in your laundry. Like I put my expired lemongrass in my actual
Oh,
my
that's
washing
interesting.
machine.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, because they're antimicrobial. Like these are
Yes.
great, like lemongrass is a great cleanser. So if it smells weird, don't put it on your skin. You don't even want to smell it. So you'll know
Okay.
when it goes off because it just smells like, ugh, it smells like a sad poem. Like it's no longer a happy poem. uh, but I just do actually want to mention this was my paper I wrote for my certification. The start of it was is cleaning with essential oils and
Yes.
household staples and the incredibly potent nature of essential oils for being antimicrobial, like clove, oregano, thyme. So I have a class about that.
Oh, amazing. And so for that class, um, if you'll just give me a link and I'll put the link below for our listeners
Sure.
if anyone is interested, because that's a big thing, right? That was one of the first things that I learned to get chemicals out of my house is to really look at my cleaning product house. So that's a very good place for people to start who wants to live a cleaner life, be exposed to less toxins, expose their kids to less toxins. So yes, that's a great place to start.
Yes, it is. And I'm glad another place, like you mentioned, get rid of those scented candles. I, as an
Yes.
aromatherapist, I have beeswax candles in my home.
Ah, for sure.
It's the cleaner we can be because I've said this and I think it's shocking, but scent becomes us. It goes
Yes.
in and we have to metabolize it, even if it's in small amounts. If you're smelling that, sorry, Yankee Candle Company, if you're smelling that Yankee candle every day, lighting that for that experience, you're breathing that in and it's not good. Anyway, soapbox, sorry.
So no, this is fascinating, and I know our audience is going to love it. I love actually these podcasts, all the messages that I get, because our podcast listeners love it. They want to learn. This is why they listen to this, right? To really get pure quality information out there. Next one is that I often see is so which herbs do you advise for people for mood? So say during menopause, but then also outside of menopause, if you have that anxiety, if you have that panic attack, what are the herbs that you really advise or oils or smells for mood?
Yeah, you won't love the answer. It depends on the individual, but I like to think of essential oils because it's funny to call them, there's uppers and downers, and then the modulators in the middle.
Yes, so talk to us
So,
about that.
sorry?
Yes, so tell us about that. The uppers. What do you do to uplift
Yeah.
and what do you do to help you sleep at night?
Yeah. So the uppers you can think of as your quote stimulants. So you can even include in there the lemon. There's a lot of research out there with bergamot or bergamot essential oil. Any of the citruses you can turn to sunshine, cheer, change your mood from a memory. That helps. It's an upper. We're also going to look at things like rosemary. There's a lot of science behind it for rosemary for stimulation, uplifting, clarifying, brightening. I'm going to throw in there, if you could work with it, myrtle, bay laurel that we cook with, black pepper, frankincense. Blow your mind, open, clarify. I have frankincense here. It's just opening. It's people have seen it. There's some evidence it works on in a brain pathway, the TRVP3 pathway, some of the components of frankincense. In the middle, your modulators, if you want to start to feel like, you don't need to feel out there and bright. You can start to feel centered like a tree. Some of your classics, Atlas cedar is one you'll see readily available. Cedrus deodora. There's one here native to North America, Juniperus virginiana, or the cedar tree. That's grandfather energy, calming, centering, but it's not making you go woo, and it's not making you go to sleep. Another modulator that we talk about for women's health especially is geranium from South Africa.
Nice.
Pelargonium graveolens. Great balancer for mood. I'd put lavender in there too, because lavender isn't always sedative, but geranium's a super good balancer. When I had fibroids, we won't get into my story, but I was working with geranium at the time before I did have surgery to help me modulate my mood.
For you
to help me feel
fibroids.
balanced. Yeah. Goodbye, fibroids.
Good.
Thank you, modern medicine. And also, so the downers, in quotes, the more sedative ones, the ones that help you kind of go down, or that, like I mentioned, the vetiver, patchouli. You could start to think a little sexual too, like your jasmine and your ylang is more readily and cheaper, not worse than jasmine, but ylang, Cananga
To increase
odorata. Libido. And I'd say it helps you, like patchouli, it helps you sink into your body and feel comfortable in yourself when you smell that and you spend time with it. Another quote, downer, and there's some research that shows that physically Roman chamomile works with oxytocin. There's a study that was brought to my attention. But Roman chamomile is like a blanket that you just want to go to sleep. It's incredibly sedative to the nervous system. I've seen it in classes and workshops. Everyone around me just looks like they're ready to go to bed and they're draggy. And that's like chamomile tea, right? The Roman chamomile. I'd say German chamomile that we more drink. I put her more towards the middle of brightening, clarifying, great for digestion too.
Yes.
But I gave you a bunch of oils. I hope that was helpful.
This is very helpful, especially for me with little kids. Everyone is going to get chamomile tonight on their pillows.
On that note, you love as a teaser for aromatherapy blending. Everyone won't like this, but a classic sleep blend, like in a sleep mist that we talked about before.
Yes.
You put like 30 drops total of the oil. You spray on the pillow before bed. Like a little bit of some lavender, like 7 drops, 10 drops lavender, 1 to 2 drops of chamomile. You don't need a lot. And maybe you could put sweet orange in that, or mandarin. And mandarin's shown to be a little sedative. So you put maybe 7 or 10 drops of the mandarin in there. And then you make your spray, and then you shake it and spray, not your kid, not your child, but you'd spray their pillow. Maybe you spray your hair. Yeah. And it's just a classically sweet little go to bed mist. And you know what I love if you have children? I don't. When you have a mist for a child, this is powerful, and they have anxiety about sleep or monsters under the bed, you can give them this tool to say, go buy monsters, you're not going to show up, and they could spray the room themselves. Right? You could really
feel more
interact.
powerful and enable.
Yeah. Transitions.
Love it. Yes. Oh, thank you so much, Amy. This was incredible to talk to you. And I know our listeners will just love it. I can just imagine all the feedback we're going to get. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'll make sure that I'll put your links below for all our audience if they want to learn more. And thank you for your passion that you have in educating, right? That's really wonderful. Empowering us, equipping us. I really enjoy that. Thank you so much for your time.
But Dr. Daniela, I really appreciate it. This has been a joy. Thank you.